criteria are different and can be found via Brinks through their website. People with information may remain anonymous, and your confidentiality is guaranteed. In addition to what we're talking about today, there's a slideshow showing pictures of the suspects, including the weapons and vehicles they are using. Anyone with information about Hobson or Davis or any other unknown subjects is urged to call the FBI at 1-800-CALL-FBI. If you'd like to provide a tip online, you can do so via our website at fbi.gov. The public can also help in sharing information via social media platforms, which we will be using, but we encourage you to reshare those. And we are hopeful that with your help, we will solve this case, and you may contribute to saving a life. Thank you for your attention and attending today. It is now my pleasure to introduce the U.S. Attorney, Martin Estrada.
Thank you so much. Good morning. My name is Martin Estrada. I'm the United States Attorney for the Central District of California, which includes Los Angeles. We're here today to announce federal criminal charges against two individuals, Denavius Hobson and his half-brother, James Russell Davis. These two individuals are alleged to have been involved in a series of armed robberies. These armed robberies targeted armored vehicles and the drivers of those armored vehicles. And I want to emphasize how brazen these robberies were. These robberies occurred in broad daylight. They occurred when the drivers were going to ATMs and banks to receive money, and the defendants in this case and other co-conspirators were heavily armed and pointed their weapons at the victims when robbing them. Defendants Denavius Hobson and James Russell Davis are charged with conspiracy to interfere in commerce by robbery. This is known as the Hobbs Act. The Hobbs Act is a federal robbery statute which prohibits actual or attempted robbery or extortion affecting interstate or foreign commerce in any way or degree. These charges carry a statutory maximum penalty of 20 years. However, because firearms were involved and a firearm was actually discharged, additional charges may be appropriate, which would carry a life mandatory sentence. Now, in terms of the complaint and the details in the complaint, Hobson is alleged to have been one of the gunmen. He is believed to have discharged his firearm during one particular robbery in Hawthorne. He was arrested on February 21st, is being held in federal custody, has an arraignment date of March 16th. Although the investigation is ongoing, law enforcement authorities in Inglewood, Hawthorne, the LAPD, and the FBI have detected similarities and commonalities between these robberies, and they identified two of the robbers who were charged in the complaint. In some of the instances, defendants Hobson and his half-brother Davis were observed casing the victims weeks in advance of the robberies. During the heists, the defendants held the victim guards at gunpoint, forcing them on the ground, sometimes using zip ties, pointing firearms at them, and stealing the money. In total, we allege that over $500,000 in cash has been stolen through the robberies that we've charged. Each robbery was also committed using, as I mentioned, numerous firearms, including a black short-barreled AR-type assault rifle, which, again, I'll emphasize, was pointed at the victims when they were robbed. Law enforcement is searching for Mr. Davis and other co-conspirators, and we're here today tasked with the public's help in terms of locating these individuals, apprehending them, and preventing them from causing further harm and danger to our community. I want to thank the FBI and the LAPD, as well as the Inglewood and Hawthorne police departments, for their extraordinary and ongoing work in this case. And as you'll hear today, we are committed to bringing these individuals to justice and making sure that we use all our resources to combat violent crime in our district. Thank you. And now I'd like to introduce LAPD Chief Michael Moore.
U.S. Attorney Estrada, thank you for not just your presence today and charging these men for these violent robberies that are occurring here in the Los Angeles area, but also for your steadfast commitment. Since your arrival as a U.S. Attorney here in the Central District, as a department, we have seen your commitment to use felony federal offenses as appropriate for armed armed violence that's occurring all too often in our region. So thank you for that. Those enhancements, the added weight of the federal government into prosecution is not just appropriate, but acts as a deterrent. And we believe we're beginning to see the deterrent and the reduction in gun violence in part because of your office's work and support. To Assistant Director in Charge Alway, thank you again for your partnerships. The FBI and the Los Angeles Police Department, along with Hawthorne and Inglewood, we all stand united in this region to work together to identify those persons responsible for such violent crimes as we're talking about here today. Our work is tireless, it's relentless, and it will not stop. What I'm particularly proud of in this instance is 5 robberies, 3 of which occurred in the city of Los Angeles, 2, one in Hawthorne, 1 in Inglewood, over a span of a year, that detectives working together knitted together the interplay between those locations and the commonality of not just these 2 individuals that have been identified, but the 5 additional that we are aware of and which photographs are being published. Their work and using investigative resources and techniques allowed the Los Angeles Police Department, Robbery Homicide Division, Special Investigations Section, to identify and locate the 2 individuals, to identify and locate the individual that was arrested and will continue to assist in this investigation. What's important here today is not just the partnership and the cooperation between law enforcement and our prosecutors in holding these individuals accountable as a deterrent, but also as a consequence such as violent acts. But what's important here today is for the public's help, as was identified, and I want to thank the FBI for the generosity of them providing as much information as they're providing in these cases, to not just name these individuals, but to name the neighborhood in which they were known to meet and organize their efforts, and as well as the vehicles that we have identified to this point as being involved in these brazen assaults. Now we need the public's help, and I'm hopeful that with the announcement that the Bureau's reach across the entire United States, because there is no certainty that these individuals have remained locally. It's very possible that they've traveled to other parts of the region or out of state, that the reach of the FBI in concert with the support of the U.S. Attorney's Office, that certainly law enforcement will be looking to identify and bring these individuals in. We need the public's help and assistance with that. Lastly, the Brinks Armored Car Company is a partner with law enforcement in ensuring that their important work in keeping society working. The commerce of our country depends on financial transactions, and the ability to safely transport monies and currencies across from one business to another and from the banking institution, financial institutions to those operating businesses. They have been a steady and stable partner with law enforcement to ensure their practices are well-trained, well-staffed, and organized to minimize the risk to the public as well as to the merchants and the financial stability of our country through the safe transportation of finances. I'm grateful that no guard or employee of them have been injured to this date. But when we look at the tactics that have been used here, someone equated it to something that you see out of the movies. The challenge with this is real life. The weapons that we've described here will take lives. It would take just a moment or an impulse for the loss of life to be immediate and for it to be far-reaching, well beyond just even a single individual. So we need the public's help to identify these individuals, bring them before the criminal justice system, and stop these robberies that are undermining the confidence in the safety of our communities. Thank you again.
So we're now open to questions for any 3 of us.
Would you be able to describe exactly how it is that they operate on any given situation that you've described today? You said that they've been looking out and casing the areas for weeks in advance, but can you describe at least one of those incidents, how they go about violently committing these robberies, please, and how many are involved in each one of the robberies?
So you've got a couple questions packed together there, but we'll talk about it a little bit. I mean, some of that information is in the press release. We do know that they are using techniques like advanced surveillance. We do know that there are multiple vehicles involved, and we do know, right, that there are multiple suspects in each one of these robberies. There are some variables. We're not going to share all the exact details, but it is a sophisticated group.
Time involved on the robberies, how long from the time they brace it to the time they're out of there?
Well, without getting into specifics, I mean, they are an organized crew. They are moving quickly.
2 minutes, less?
Again, I don't have those exact details for each one of them, but they are sophisticated and have planned operations.
How many people are involved in each one of these? Is it a two-man, three-man, four-man group? Does it vary?
It varies, but it's at least multiple in each one of the robberies.
Walk through what happens on these things when they hit the armored car. Who hits them first? What happens? How does it go down?
So again, we won't do exact specifics for exact fact pattern, but I can tell you that there are people coming out armed with weapons, confronting while there are drivers remaining with the vehicles.
How are you able to positively identify the two suspects, the ones that you've named today in the press conference?
Yeah, I mean, that goes to the good police work and combined efforts with the agents involved. But they're using every tool in the toolbox and every piece of technology and just good old-fashioned police work to identify them and then to locate them.
Are these guys tied in any way to any South Los Angeles gangs or gang sets?
So I don't have specifics to that, but I know that there have been gang affiliations identified.
You want to expand on that a little?
I don't have the details in front of me right now.
How common a crime is this? I remember in the 90s we had this happening all the time, and this to me it now seems like a rarity. Is this something that's piqued your interest because it's rare, or is it common?
I think it's really piqued our interest, because of the violence and the potential for loss of life that's involved, Anytime somebody's taking a military type assault weapon and robbing people in our streets, we're going to pay attention to that.
Specifically, what kind of weapons are you using to commit these robberies?
So there's multiple weapons involved. At least one is an AR-15 type rifle with an optic, with an extended magazine. You can tell that from the photographs, as well as semi-automatic handguns.
Why pick the armored cars and how do they do it? I mean, are they waiting for the guys to come on in or pull on up before they refill an ATM? Or are they getting them after they've emptied it and are coming on out? How's the pattern?
Well, I mean, clearly they're using some form of intelligence to make some of these decisions. If you look at the losses that are involved, this is where the money is, as the old saying goes. So there's a lot of cash involved, and clearly they're picking their targets accordingly.
What's the average take on these? So you get 5 robberies, you're saying $500,000.
Yeah.
What are they getting, $50,000 to $80,000 apiece?
Again, I don't have all those specifics right in front of me, but the team is compiling those numbers, and some of that's in the complaint.
Is Brinks going to alter its tactics, patterns, people involved, go to 3-man, 4-man trucks if they have to?
So, I mean, that's a good question for Brinks. I mean, there are multiple companies involved. You would have to find out specifically from them what their tradecraft is.
These guys are hooded up and that's masked up, that's fine, one thing. Any indication these guys wearing body armor at all?
Not that we know of.
Have you been able to collect any evidence, as it seems, or maybe even recover some of the cash they've stolen, since you already have a suspect in custody?
So at least one shell casing has been recovered.
Any other
Great.
questions? Okay.
Thank you all so much.
The U.S. Attorney will do Spanish for anybody who needs it. There you go.
Where do you want me to look? Okay. ¿Listos? Okay, ¿listos? Buenos días. Yo soy Martín Estrada, soy el fiscal federal para el área de Los Ángeles, incluyendo este condado. Lo que anunciamos hoy es una queja criminal. Esta queja criminal acusa a 2 individuales de cometer robos armados en Los Ángeles, específicamente en Inglewood, Hawthorne y el sur de Los Ángeles. Esos robos fueron contra los conductores de vehículos blindados. En estos robos, los acusados estaban armados, usaron esas armas, en una ocasión dispararon el arma y robaron en total más que $500,000. Nosotros, las autoridades, FBI, LAPD, estamos haciendo todo posible para encontrar todos los acusados. Tenemos uno en custodia, el Devonius Davis, y también, Devonius Hobson, y estamos buscando el otro, James Russell Davis, que todavía no está en custodia.
¿Y cuántos son los
Nuestra queja criminal es contra 2 acusados. Sabemos que hay otros conspiradores que están ayudando y actuando en concierto con estos 2, pero la queja criminal es sobre estos 2 y el que pedimos al público que nos ayude a encontrar es el James Russell Davis.
Dicen que son altamente peligrosos.
Son altamente peligrosos. Cuando cometieron estos robos estaban armados con armas semiautomáticas y también rifles.
Todos los sospechosos están arrestados. ¿Qué cargos enfrentan? Perdón, no sé si quieren mencionar.
Con la queja criminal tenemos 1 en custodia. El que está en custodia es Devonius Hobson. Hay otro acusado que no está en custodia y lo estamos buscando. Por eso pedimos la ayuda de ustedes, el público, para encontrar este Davis.
¿Y el reward de la recompensa es de cuánto?
La recompensa del FBI es $25,000 para encontrar estos acusados.
¿Mencionó un estimado de cuánto han robado en total en efectivo?
Sí, en total han robado más que $500,000 en efectivo. Muchas gracias.
Appreciate it.
Oh, okay.